Well then, the DCU plot thickens. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on X Twitter. Please do, to keep updated with every piece of entertainment news. I retweet everything I can for you, not just DC. So follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X, TikTok Mad Mickey's World as well, and Snapchat Mick, your host with the most. So a very warm welcome to Tuesday's edition of the DCU Daily, and you are not going to miss anything from the DC Studios press event. It was finally unveiled yesterday. Projects on the back burner. I guess this is what happens when you walk before you can run. Some very, very interesting tidbits. Even James Gunn and Peter Safron admitting that they're kind of lost with some projects. It's insane. I'm an honest content creator. I want to be honest with the news we get. I'm not just going to tell you the news. I'm not just going to tell you what they said. I'm going to tell you my expert opinion on this news. My father worked in the industry. I did a few years in Hollywood, LA, California. I went to school. I met a lot of people from the industry. I know how these people think. So let's not waste any more time. This is from Boris Kitt, from the Hollywood Reporter, their top boy. Let's see what he has to say on the DC Studios press event. DC Studios slate evolution. Some projects put on back burner as others full steam ahead. 2 years after James Gunn and Peter Safran unveiled an ambitious slate, the duo offered updates on what they found along the way. Clayface and what has hit speed bumps, Waller and The Authority. So this is very, very interesting. So let's get into this. In 1984, DC Comics hit a renaissance period, putting out titles that were really connecting with readers. There was even a well-known slogan from that era, the new DC. There's no stopping us now. Just over 40 years later, a case could be made that the same mantra is coursing through DC Studios. I couldn't disagree less. Press were brought out here, really, to talk about a slate that should never have been announced in the first place. Should have waited to see how the Superman movie did. And it's PR stunt after PR stunt. This is a PR stunt because after we read all this information, you're going to know that things are not going well for Gunn, Safron, Zaslav, and Warner Brothers Discovery. But anyway, let's read the propaganda. So where are we at? So the Warner Brothers Discovery division focused on bringing the popular comics characters to screens big and small. We don't want these characters to die out, said DC Studios co-head James Gunn at a press event Friday. We want to bring new stories and new life. We want to introduce these characters to new generations, and I think we are doing that slowly but surely. Well, until we see what you're doing, son. I mean, Creature Commandos, from what I've heard, was a solid enough animated show, but it's what James Gunn does best. He was going to do that whether he was co-CEO of DC Studios or not. I'm not going to criticize Creature Commandos. It sounds solid and it sounds cool. Anyway, DC Studios, which Gunn runs with Peter Safran, is just over 2 years old, and its big test will be this summer's Superman, which Gunn wrote and directed as the division's inaugural film. But Gunn and Safran are not waiting to see how Superman flies, which is a huge mistake. So anyway, are not waiting to see how Superman flies before making next moves. The duo are moving with the speedy deliberation of The Flash to get as many projects going as possible, maybe before anyone can stop them. And this is a great point from Boris Kitt. They're in a rush to announce slate after slate, project after project, so Superman flops, it's full steam ahead, and it'll be very difficult for Zaslav to say stop. But believe you me, this is the guy who has shelved movies. You know, one that Gunn produced as well, the Acme Roadrunner, whatever it's called one. He ain't scared of stopping that train. The space fantasy Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is halfway through production in London. Lantern's an HBO series featuring heroes Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart began shooting in Los Angeles last week. Clayface, a body horror thriller based on the Batman villain, finally found its director and will shoot this summer for a fall of 2026 release. Sergeant Rock, a period war movie to be directed by Luca Guadagnino, is actively looking for its star, and an animated movie titled Dynamic Duo is in pre-production. A lot of these projects sound really ambitious, but having ambitious ideas is one thing, executing them is another thing. Is this slate a reality, or is it all another PR stunt to sell Superman to the public? This August, season 2 of action comedy series The Peacemaker will debut on Max. Smaller but key steps for the identity of the division included acquiring the documentary Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. That was bought by WB. It had nothing to do with James Gunn. James Gunn didn't direct the outstanding documentary. I saw it. It was outstanding and it made me cry. I love Christopher Reeve. He's Superman. He's amazing. He was amazing. He lives in our hearts. James Gunn, yeah, the DC Studios logo may be on there, but Gunn had nothing to do in the making of that documentary. Let's not get it twisted. WBD's buyers brought that in, which is the last several weeks won awards from the BAFTA and the PGA and unveiling its first Max animated series, Creature Commandos. At the meeting with journalists Friday, the Warner Brothers Discovery Burbank Lots own dynamic duo gave updates on the slate and explained the ethos and strategy driving their decision making. Gunn and Safron took over in November 2022 after Warner Brothers Discovery head David Zaslav made it a priority to revitalize the storied IP factory after the merger of Warner Media and Discovery. Prior to that, DC had fractured into several fieldoms with actors, filmmakers and producers. Right. Let's quickly talk about fractures, because Gunn has criticised DC live action for being fractured. So let's be clear about this. Without that fracture, there's no Batman 89, there's no Batman Returns, there's no Dark Knight trilogy, there's no Constantine, there's no Smallville, there's no Arrowverse. Inject that fracture in my veins. There's nothing wrong with this fracture. A fracture is what live action comic book movies and TV needs, not a connected universe. But anyway, so where are we? Yeah, the storied IP factory after the merger. Yeah, so basically you're talking about the films with actors, filmmakers and producers competing for a piece of the pie. It was a dark time for the brand. It was not a dark time for the brand. Superman 78, Superman 2, Superman 3, right? Even Superman 4. We talked about Burton's Batverse, the Nolan trilogy, Matt Reeves' Joker 2019. It wasn't a dark time. Anyway, we continue. The DC brand was being defined by different creative teams, as it should be. At the company, each was pursuing their own distinct vision, as they should, of the characters, the story. The result was not one DCU, but many summed up. Safron, yes, it's good. This fracture proved very challenging to consumers, and it chipped away at the identity of the brand. Absolute BS. Coming from Peter Safran, who has produced other movies in the connected universe, which were flop after flop after flop, apart from Shazam and Aquaman, which he didn't have much to do with, by the way. From the duo's perspective, a lot of work has already been done, so absolutely outrageous to say the fracture was a bad thing. Anyway, even ahead of Superman's release, we've unified the brand. We've greenlit 5 theatrical films, made 3 live-action series, and are producing 5 animated series, he said. My adventures with Green Lantern and Starfire are 2 of the animated titles, so there you go. So My Adventures with Green Lantern and Starfire. Could be interesting, could be cool, I'm not going to crap on them. The goal for the company is to make 2 live-action films and one animated movie per year, while also producing 2 live action and 2 animated series for Max per year. So let's go over that again. So the goal for the company is to make 2 live action films, right? And 1 animated movie per year. That's for cinema. So that's 2 live action movies and 1 animated movie for cinema per year, right? While also producing 2 live action and 2 animated series for Max per year. So that's basically, I think, so that's what's that, about 7 projects a year, something like that. So you've got 3 for cinema, right? And then you've got 2 live action and 2, so about 7, right? The company aims to work in multiple genres and sizes of projects. We don't serve one kind of audience, so why make one kind of movie, Safron said. Adding working in a multitude of genres, it affords us the opportunity to allocate resources they can make the biggest impact. We budget according to the demands of the story and the revenue expectations of each title. And while there will be connectivity between movies and shows to give that universe feel, the duo don't want each entry to feel like a chapter to a larger story. We remain steadfast that each of these projects works as a standalone project, said Gunn. So you can see Superman, you can watch Lanterns without having to see both of them. Although if you can, there will be special things in there for people who have seen both. One thing that is the undercurrent driving the division is the writing of the scripts. We are writer-driven, declared Gunn. We are not going to greenlight or put anything into production until we are happy with the script. Now, that's a good thing, but I think he's being overly cautious with certain situations because he's worried and he's bringing in subpar people to write those scripts. So he's not happy. So he's looking for other people. That's the problem. It is hard enough making a good movie with a good script. It's almost impossible to make a movie with a script that you're writing on the run. Scripts that weren't up to the duo's snuff have been displaced by other projects on the slate, and scripts hadn't even been dreamt of have risen to the top of the production pile, with Rock and Clayface being prime examples. We had no plans making a Clayface movie, noted Gunn, even after scribe Mike Flanagan pitched what they felt was a great idea. There was still a wait-and-see attitude. He turned in a script, and it's one of the best scripts that we read, said Safron. We laid out internally a plan, but we're happy to pivot as we discover things in the making of Superman or Supergirl or scripts being written. There's a flexibility built into even though we know where the larger story is headed. And while Gunn and Safron didn't elaborate, they did say they had a 6-year plan that would include an Avengers Endgame style culmination. Didn't they originally say they had a 10-year plan? I don't believe any of this Avengers Endgame nonsense. By the way, this is Snyder's plan. Snyder had that plan culminating in 3 Justice League movies, a Flash movie, and a reboot so another creative could come in and start from scratch. A reference to Marvel Studios' 2019 climactic movie, which Gunn worked on as an executive producer, thanks to his role as the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The execs acknowledged that some projects on the initial DC slate they unveiled in January 2023 have met challenges that could bedevil Brainiac himself. We've taken a couple of cracks at it, but still haven't been able to land, Safron says, about Waller. I want you to think about this, right? A simple series that Gunn was going to make, right? Gunn was going to get made before he became co-CEO of DC Studios, before there was a DC Studios. They tried twice to get a script done, and they're struggling to make a script for a TV show. TV's been around for years. People have been producing great TV as I grew up. Michael Landon produced and directed most of the episodes of Little House on the Prairie. I don't remember him saying, oh, we can't do it because we're struggling. Each episode was fantastic and emotionally uplifting. But these people are so creatively bankrupt, they can't even produce a Waller script. Not that I care about Waller, but it's basic, because if you can't come up with a script for Waller, how are you going to come up for a script for a movie, a good, competent one? A Peacemaker Suicide Squad spin-off that was to star Viola Davis, Waller has been a bumpy road. A series on time-travelling hero, Booster Gold, was waiting for a showrunner to make time for it, but maybe he fell out of love. Maybe he got busy, he says, but we had to pivot. So in other words, they brought someone else in to run Booster Gold, a Booster Gold series, but he went off, got fed up, wasn't interested in the end. Probably someone quite prominent who wasn't comfortable with working with them, and that's what they're trying to say here. So, Booster Gold not happening anytime soon or at all, and same with Waller, you can forget about them. The Authority, a superhero group created in the late 1990s, had a script that has had a harder time coming along. Notes Gunn, it hasn't been much a priority. So it's hilarious. It's hilarious. You know, the big Authority movie that I thought Gunn might write and direct himself, right? His excuse was, oh, with the boys about, it's difficult because it's a similar thing. Well, you knew the boys was around when you greenlit the Authority. Basically, they've launched a press event, a second one to talk about their slate, because there's so many things not happening because they've made an absolute mess of it. Anyway, additionally, James Mangold's take on horror hero Swamp Thing also seems to have cooled. We talk about it occasionally, Gunn said. So, wow, Swamp Thing isn't happening. Mangold's Swamp Thing, what happened there then, right? Not happening, basically. It's double talk to say it is not happening, everyone. Wow, and that went under the radar yesterday as I was scrolling up X Twitter. Not happening. One of the biggest projects that they announced. They announced a bunch of projects that were, a lot of them, not going to happen. So basically, as I say to you, it's all PR. It's all PR to launch Superman. You're talking about a used car salesman, and that proves it. It's insane, right? You know, let's reread this. Additionally, James Mangold's take on horror hero Swamp Thing also seems to have cooled. We talk about it occasionally, Gunn said. It's insane. Anyway, and then there's the Batman problem, or several. Despite strong efforts, any new movie featuring the Dark Knight seems years away. It's been 3 years since Matt Reeves' The Batman introduced Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne in March 2022, making over $772 million during the pandemic. No less, but a sequel seems no closer than before. He's yet to turn in a full script, but what we have read so far is incredibly encouraging, Safron says. Right, so he has given them some pages. Now, I'm hearing that Adby and DeLuca at WB Pictures have seen more of his script, nearly a full script, more than Gunn and Safron. There is a divide. You know, Reeves and Gunn are not as unified as you may think. And let me give you some more tea. Gunn wanted Robert Pattinson to be the DCU Batman. He wanted the Reeves Batman verse to be part of the DCU. Obviously, Reeves doesn't want that. But Robert Pattinson made it absolutely clear that I will drop this role. I won't be Batman anymore in the Reeves verse if you try and force me to be part of the DCU. This is an actor who was part of the Twilight Saga. He's done a franchise before. He don't want to be stuck in some plastic quarter-pounder McDonald's meal franchise again. So far is incredibly encouraged. Yeah, so blah. So DC Studios is also concurrently developing The Brave and the Bold. I've already told you that film is not happening. Centered on Batman and his son Damian Wayne. But although it was announced in 2023 that Andy Muschietti would direct the feature and be a producer on it, the filmmaker behind The Flash and It movies seems to be at arm's length from the project. So he'll probably get a producer's credit if it ever happens. And I'm telling you, it's not happening, right? Because they're going to do, James Gunn is going to write and direct a world's finest movie, probably a kind of sequel to Superman. Right, that will be Gunn's next project. I don't know. I've seen a quote from him. He hasn't said it specifically. That's what's happening. Brave and the Bold If it does happen, is years away. It's definitely been postponed. I told you that Muschietti would not be doing that film from the moment it was announced just to sell more tickets for The Flash. How did that work out for you, Mr. Gunn? I told you, PR stunt after PR stunt, a used car salesman. So Muschietti isn't even involved at the moment. We're developing Brave and the Bold script right now, and he'll be the first one to see it, Safron said, referring to Muschietti probably because he's still going to have a producer credit, while also strongly implying the filmmaker is not involved in the project's development. How can you be a director and not be involved in the film's development? He's not directing it, the movie doesn't exist. Gunn went so far as to say he was now the driving force of the title. Yeah, basically he's taken over it, right? He weren't happy. I don't know what's going on there. Basically, Muschietti was never involved and Gunn was always driving it. Everybody knows I love Batman and it's important for me, so I'm working very closely with the writer on Brave of the Bold, he said. The writer's name was not revealed. So, is Gunn the writer and he doesn't want to say he's the writer? Is it a really famous writer, screenwriter? Or is it someone we're not going to be happy about writing it? Maybe Christina Hodson, for example. Gunn poured cold water that Pattinson would star as Batman in Brave and the Bold and bristled at the world sharing the actor with Reeves. He said there were no serious conversations about the actor continuing his role into the broader DCU rather than staying in the separate universe of Reeves' world. Well, because they're not interested. Reeves and Pattinson don't want that. You did want them to join the DCU, and they said no. And I think they even had to get Adby and DeLuca to tell you to back off. That's what I heard, right or wrong. The small screen also seems to have trouble in the Batcave, while the Penguin, a spin-off of Reeves' Batman that continues to steal award after award. On Sunday, star Colin Farrell won the SAG award for the best actor in a limited series. There seems to be no plan for a follow-up. When asked by a second season, Safron plainly said, "We don't know. There are a lot of moving pieces, probably most importantly Colin himself, and 800 pounds of makeup," which he'll already be wearing for the Batman 2. By the way, there's no need for a Penguin sequel series, There's other stories to tell if they want to do spin-offs. That story's been told. Put him in the movies with Batman. Leave it alone, right? Did really well in the ratings. People enjoyed it. But narratively, I have a lot of problems with that show. And if you saw my reviews, you'll know why. Right now, however, the focus is back on Superman. Gunn is returning to Atlanta this week to continue the post-production process on the movie. And while there aren't any major plans for DC Studios to be at San Diego Comic-Con, the division plans on making a splash at CinemaCon, the annual gathering of theatre owners at the top of April. Interesting. So, not many plans for San Diego, which is the bigger event, because CinemaCon didn't work out very well for The Flash. But it looks like Gunn has a preference for CinemaCon, and I don't understand why. And while some may wonder if the character and embodiment of so-called American values or human values can sidestep cultural debates, Gunn believes he's the right Superman because he's not part of the cultural moment. I think he's the right Superman because he's a character that stands for something that is solid, stands for basic human morals, basic human integrity, basic belief in protecting others and protecting the weak. Being good to people and being honest, he said. People are looking for heroes right now. They are looking for values of goodness, looking for people who are good and decent human beings. And Superman is that. Exactly what Bryan Singer told us as he was promoting Superman Returns. And we all know what Bryan Singer's been accused of. And James Gunn isn't exactly on the side of the angels, although he's apologized for everything that's been found out about him. So Superman represents everything that New Hollywood and Donald Trump don't. And they will leave no stone unturned in order to get word out on their first movie, adding that the full weight of WBD is behind Superman. David Zaslav loves what we're doing, loves the movie. He does not love the movie. He does not love the movie. Who could love that awful TV spot? He would have loved that teaser, I did. But when he saw You're Flying, mate, he must have been concerned, and has really rallied the entire company behind Superman for this summer, Safron explained. You've seen what can happen when Warner Brothers Discovery gets together behind a Barbie or a Beetlejuice or a Wonka or a Kong. And that's how it's being treated right now for Superman. Everything that David Zaslav has promised us 2 years ago when we got the job, it's all been a reality. He's going to put the full forces of the studio to promote your movie because his studio have invested nearly 200 million in it. They need their money back. They want to make a profit. Of course, they're going to put everything behind the marketing. It doesn't mean they believe in your movie. And that is the information. But let me see if I can find any more information. So let me press pause. Let's have a look. So a little bit of more tea on the animated series Starfire. The show follows her adventures after she uses an ancient spaceship she discovers on her home planet of Tamaran to escape her planet and explore the stars. Sounds interesting if you're into that kind of thing, and I'm sure it'll be a neat animated series. Again, Gunn has been talking about his next writing and directing project at DC Studios. I'm writing and directing something else that will be the next directing thing. It's connected. This was the question he got from Collider Frosty. Asked if Gunn's next project at the studio would be Superman 2, Gunn gave a cryptic answer with an update regarding his next mystery project. So he kind of says it's connected. It looks like it's definitely World's Finest, which solves a problem. Gunn's got a problem with the Reeveverse because they can't have two Batmans at the same time, two Batman movies at the same time. But they want a Batman in the DCU. He tried integrating the Reeveverse with the DCU, as I just said, wasn't happening. So I think they're doing World's Finest instead of doing one movie. Now, I don't know if World's Finest comes before the Batman 2 or after the Batman 2, but isn't it interesting? After Man of Steel, we got Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and most probably now, we're getting World's Finest. So how different is the DCU to the DCEU? Not very much. And again, in terms of the DCU Batman, this is something I've been telling you for a long time. Unfortunately, Gunn said it was very unlikely that the Batman star Robert Pattinson would reprise the role for the Brave and the Bold, but he did not foreclose the possibility that the DCU version of the character could show up before his titular film. I wouldn't rule anything out, Gunn said. He would show up in something else, but the actor doesn't exist yet. According to him, he hasn't cast anyone. Do we believe him? I don't know. So probably going to turn up in other projects, as I told you a while back, would be the case. It looks like this little content creator who nobody believes and nobody watches is spot on and has got great sources in the business. Start coming to this platform if you want to know truths. And here's another project, right? Not a big project. It's called DC Superpowers. Takes place at the Alliance School for Heroes and focuses on new students Lightning Flash, Plastic Man, Aquagirl, Green Lantern, and Terra, who level up their powers under the supervision of Principal Martian Manhunter in the hopes of one day graduating and becoming the next generation of Earth's defenders. Matt Beans is the executive producing, and Michael Chang is a supervising producer. Very, very interesting. Don't know if it's animated or live action though, but it'd be a good little thing for Mac, so I can be positive about that. My Adventures with Green Lantern. Here is the synopsis. We'll follow high school student Jessica Cruz, who has her life upended when, according to an official logline, a Green Lantern power ring falls from the sky and chooses Cruz to be its champion. Things get even worse when more debris from the Lantern's ancient space war arrives along with their alien foes. Jake Wyatt is executive producing and Stephanie Gonzaga is co-executive producer. So, yeah, My Adventures with Green Lantern will absolutely be an animated series. I want to see Jessica Cruz in live action. Maybe we'll see her cameo in Lanterns. I certainly hope so. James Gunn reacts to posting that viral photo with Zack Snyder. We knew that people have this view that somehow we've been pitted against each other. It's odd to have someone who you're friendly with in real life be the guy that is positioned as your Lex Luthor, or I am his Lex Luthor. It's just such a weird dynamic that's been created between factions online. Factions. The Snyderverse stands and your own fans have created that. Not factions, your fans have created this thing, making Zack Snyder, Lex Luthor, a new Superman. So you're neither of those people, either of you. We all know your connections in the past. I'm not so sure you're actually friends, but that picture was another PR stunt, wasn't it now, James? And here's an update on the Teen Titans live-action movie. Later, a reporter asked about the status of a screenplay about Teen Titans, a group of young superheroes including Nightwing, Cyborg, and the aforementioned Starfire, written by Anna Nogaria, who also wrote Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. The script's not ready yet, Safron said. I think we said that Anna Nogaria is writing it. We haven't said that, Gunn said. No, I think it was not there, Safron said. I think it was out there. Yes, it was leaked out there, probably by you guys. It's out there, Gunn said. The implications behind, they never officially confirmed it until now. It was something that Anna was really impassioned about, and she turned over an amazing script for us. He continued, she's fiddling with that now, but it's definitely not a finished script. So basically, Teen Titans, which will be hopefully a great movie, written by Anna, is not finished yet. We'll see. I want to see a Teen Titans live-action movie. That's a positive thing. But I'll tell you what I think about all these projects in this slate when we get to the end of the video. Wow, this video went longer than I ever wanted it to, but there was a lot of information to get out there for you, and this is what we do, isn't it? You know, giving you the information and me reacting. So now I'm going to react. I'm going to give you my final summary of this press event. Why did this press event happen? I think it's interesting he did the selfie with Snyder. He wanted eyes on that press event, and I think the selfie with Snyder really began to set that up, and people started to think, oh, could he announce the Snyderverse, the restoration of the Snyderverse? Never ever was going to happen, but who knows what's going on behind the scenes. Keep on being loud, Snyder fans, because it's clear that picture was posted because what you're doing and saying online is affecting them. So what was the motivation behind this press event? Now, I said on X Twitter at first that this was a waste of time and they're just saying and announcing stuff we already know. I was wrong. It's important to say I was wrong about that, because the reason this press event actually happened is because there's a lot of projects that are being delayed but also will never happen, and they wanted to realign the slate, because there's stuff that's not going to happen. There's stuff we actually found out that we didn't know. The Starfire project, you know, the development of Teen Titans and how that's going. You know, talking about Batman Brave and the Bold, he claims he's got a writer. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think we'll see that movie, and we're not going to see it in the distant future. And Andy Muschietti was never going to be involved with that movie, and don't be surprised if Gunn ends up writing and directing that one. Apparently he has a secret writer. But the reason they had to do this upended second kind of press event was to kind of fix the slate. Because this is what happens, everyone, when you walk before you can run. So it's kind of, oh, we've got to do another press event because there's a lot of stuff that's either going to be delayed or we're never going to do. But I mean, very interestingly, saying that Swamp Thing is basically not happening. We talk about it now and again. It's not happening. Swamp Thing is not happening. And he doesn't want to talk about World's Finest yet, but we all know that's coming after Superman. And I'm quite sure he'll announce it after Superman or just before Superman. I think the DCU Batman will appear briefly in a post-credit scene or just at the end of the Superman movie to lead into World's Finest. Again, you know, a lot of his plans are exciting, but plans are one thing, and actually putting things on the big and small screen is another. And I just feel the very reason for doing this press event is to say, well, this is not happening anymore. Well, this is happening instead. And this is the problem when you announce things too soon. The only reason they did a slate was to create hype for Superman. And if that's the way they want to do things, that's up to them. They're the experienced industry people, not me. But for me, I would have released Superman, make plans quiet, keep a tight rein. You don't have to have, they're leaking this stuff out for hype. Things can be kept within kind of the confines of a studio if they wanted to. But they didn't have to make any plans. They could have plans in their heads. They could talk between them, Gunn and Safron. They didn't have to announce anything. They announced stuff for hype. And then they had to come back and say, well, this is not happening. Announcing James Mangold doing the Swamp Thing movie was huge. James is a talented writer-director, and it looks like, as I predicted, that's not happening. Everything I told you that was going to happen and wasn't going to happen is basically been confirmed to you, so it proves I know exactly what I'm talking about, and my sources are bang on. So where are we now with the DCU? Well, Superman comes out on July the 11th. We'll see if it's any good. They're now working on Supergirl. They're now working on Lanterns, right? This is as far as they are. So the other stuff sounds interesting, also sounds underwhelming. At the same time, some people will be excited, some people will be positive, other people will want it to fail, some will want it to succeed, some people are hyped, some people are not. But the proof of the pudding at the end of the day will be who goes to watch Superman. And if no one goes to watch Superman, or if its box office is underwhelming or its response is underwhelming, all these plans will ultimately come to nothing. See you again tomorrow.